For decades, you were told to eat every 2 to 3 hours, keep the metabolism going, never let yourself get hungry, eat 5, 6, 7 small meals a day. Every fitness magazine ran the same headline. Every personal trainer handed you the same plan. Every registered dietitian printed it on the same pamphlet. Eat frequently, eat small, never skip, never fast, never let that metabolic fire go cold. And if you followed that advice carefully, if you packed your snacks, set your alarms, and never let yourself go more than a few hours without eating, then congratulations, you were doing everything right, except you weren't. And the damage that habit has been causing inside your body may be the single most important reason you are still struggling with your weight, your energy, and your health right now.
Hello and welcome to Wellness Daily. Today we are going to talk about the number one most dangerous habit that has been sold to you as healthy. And what makes this so difficult to confront is that this habit is still being recommended today. It is still published in mainstream health guides.
It is still on the posters in your doctor's waiting room, and the longer you follow it, the more it quietly dismantles your metabolism from the inside out. And I'll say this up front. I already know that some people watching this are going to close the tab in the first few minutes and leave a comment saying this is dangerous advice, that everyone knows you need to eat frequently to keep your metabolism running, that skipping meals causes muscle loss and hormonal chaos. And those comments will come from people who didn't stay long enough to see the actual evidence. But if you stay with me, what you are about to understand will fundamentally change the way you see your own hunger, your own energy, and your own body. So let's start from the beginning. Let's talk about where this advice came from and how it became so deeply embedded in our culture. The logic on the surface sounds reasonable. Your metabolism is like a fire. If you let it go too long without fuel, it slows down, it goes cold. So you need to keep feeding it, small amounts, frequently, to keep it burning all day long. And alongside that was the idea that eating frequently would prevent the blood sugar crashes that drive overeating, stabilize energy throughout the day, prevent muscle breakdown, and make weight loss easier because you would never arrive at a meal ravenously hungry. That was the promise. And it was a powerful one. Millions of people followed it faithfully. They prepared Tupperware containers every Sunday night. They carried protein bars in their bags. They ate at their desks between meetings. They set timers on their phones. And when the weight still didn't come off, when the hunger still came back 2 hours after every meal, when the energy still crashed in the afternoon, they concluded the same thing that the system always wants you to conclude, that they weren't trying hard enough, that they lacked discipline, that the problem was them. But the problem was never them. The advice was wrong. So let's talk about what actually happens inside your body at the biological level every single time you eat a meal. The moment food enters your system, your blood sugar begins to rise. It does not matter whether the meal was large or small, processed or clean. The moment digestion begins, glucose moves into your bloodstream and your pancreas responds immediately by releasing insulin. Insulin is the key hormone here. It unlocks your cells and escorts that glucose inside, managing the fuel, directing it where it needs to go. And when the insulin has done its job and blood sugar returns to a stable level, insulin begins to fall. And that fall is critical. That drop in insulin is the biological signal, the green light, the cellular permission slip that tells your body it is now safe to stop storing energy and start burning it. Your body cannot burn stored fat when insulin is high. That is not an opinion. That is basic endocrinology. Insulin activates fat storage and simultaneously suppresses lipolysis, which is the process of breaking down stored fat for fuel. These two things happen together, always. Insulin up, fat storage on, fat burning off. Insulin down, fat storage off, fat burning on. This is how your metabolism was designed to work, in alternating cycles of fed and fasted states, storing during one and burning during the other. Now here is exactly where the habit of eating every 2 to 3 hours becomes a biological disaster. If you eat breakfast and your insulin rises, and then before it has a full chance to come back down, you have your mid-morning snack, insulin rises again. Then comes lunch, insulin rises again. Mid-afternoon snack, insulin again. Dinner, insulin again. Evening snack, insulin again. What you have done is kept your insulin elevated, not at dramatic highs, but persistently, consistently, throughout the vast majority of your waking hours. You have never given it the extended recovery window it needs to fall fully and stay low. And here is what that chronic elevation does over time. When your cells are exposed to elevated insulin again and again without adequate recovery between exposures, they begin to adapt. They protect themselves by downregulating their insulin receptors. They become less responsive to the signal. Your pancreas senses that the message isn't getting through, so it does the only thing it can do. It shouts louder. It produces more insulin to compensate. The signal gets more intense. The cells become more resistant. The body produces even more insulin, and the resistance deepens further. This is the progressive development of insulin resistance, and it does not happen overnight. It happens across months and years of chronically elevated insulin. It happens quietly, invisibly, without any dramatic symptoms, until it doesn't. Because insulin resistance is not just a metabolic inconvenience, it is the root mechanism of some of the most devastating chronic diseases in the modern world. When the cells throughout your body stop responding to insulin properly, blood sugar regulation breaks down. The pancreas exhausts itself trying to compensate. Visceral fat accumulates around your organs. Inflammation rises systemically, and the downstream consequences are catastrophic. Type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, hypertension, stroke. And a growing body of research now links systemic insulin resistance to certain cancers and to neurodegeneration, including Alzheimer's disease, which some researchers have begun calling type 3 diabetes because of the insulin resistance patterns found in affected brain tissue. This is not a weight problem, this is a metabolic disease problem, and the habit of eating every 2 to 3 hours, the habit that every authority in nutrition told you was the path to health, drives exactly this mechanism, not slowly, not marginally, directly and repeatedly. Every single day you follow it. And here is the cruelest part of all. Because insulin suppresses fat burning, the person who eats every 2 to 3 hours cannot access their stored body fat for energy. It is locked away, biologically inaccessible. And because they cannot access it, they are entirely dependent on incoming food to fuel their brain, their muscles, and their organs. The moment that food stops coming, the system has nothing left to draw on. Blood sugar drops, energy crashes, and the hunger that follows is not a gentle reminder. It is an urgent physiological demand. Eat something, eat now. And so they eat again, and the insulin rises again, and the cycle locks in tighter. So the very hunger that the frequent eating was supposed to prevent is being caused by the frequent eating itself. This is not about willpower. This is physiology. And no amount of personal discipline can override a hormonal environment that is working directly against you. Let's also take apart the other argument, the one you have heard 1,000 times. The one that says you need to eat frequently to keep your metabolism from slowing down. That if you go too long without eating, your body enters starvation mode and starts burning muscle instead of fat. This is not how metabolism works. Your resting metabolic rate is determined primarily by your lean muscle mass, your organ activity, and your thyroid function. It does not collapse because you went 5 hours without a snack. What research actually shows is that short-term fasting, anywhere from 12 to 48 hours, can transiently increase metabolic rate through elevated norepinephrine, one of the hormones your body releases during a fasting state to mobilize fuel. Your body does not panic and shut down. It activates, it mobilizes, it begins doing exactly what it was designed to do when incoming food is temporarily absent. It accesses its own stored energy, and it keeps you running. The idea that you need constant feeding to preserve your metabolism was never backed by the evidence. It was a theory that became dogma, and it caused immeasurable harm to millions of people who followed it in good faith and paid for it with their metabolic health. And yet when people struggle, they are told to try harder, to be more consistent, to portion more carefully, to exercise more, to stay on the plan. And some of them do try harder, for weeks or months, fighting their own biology every single day, and eventually the hunger wins. It always wins. And they walk away having failed again, having blamed themselves again, never knowing that the advice itself was the enemy. Now, some people watching this will say, I know someone who eats 6 times a day and they're perfectly healthy. And yes, there are always individual differences. There are people with exceptional metabolic resilience. There are genetic variations that offer some protection. There are people whose diet quality is high enough across all those meals that the damage is minimized. Those people exist, but they are not the majority. They are the exception. And the majority of people who have followed this advice for years are carrying the metabolic consequences without any idea that the habit itself is responsible. They have higher fasting insulin. They have more visceral fat. They have lower energy between meals. They have stronger and more frequent cravings, and they have been told it is their fault. It was never their fault. So let's talk about what actually works, and more importantly, why it works at a biological level that you can understand and apply. The solution is not complicated, and it is not extreme. It does not require you to starve yourself. It does not require you to count macros or weigh portions or eat foods you hate. It requires one thing: giving your insulin time to fall between your meals. That is it. That is the entire mechanism. Eat real food, eat until you are genuinely satisfied, and then stop eating and allow your body the time it needs to complete the insulin cycle before you eat again. Allow 4 to 5 hours between meals at minimum, longer if you can manage it comfortably. Aim for an overnight fast of 12 to 14 hours simply by not eating after dinner and delaying breakfast slightly in the morning. What happens during that fasting window is extraordinary. Insulin falls fully. The suppression of lipolysis lifts, your fat cells open, the energy that has been stored and locked away becomes available, your brain shifts to using ketones alongside glucose. Your hunger becomes calm and stable instead of urgent and cycling. And over weeks and months, something even more significant occurs. The insulin resistance that has been building begins to reverse. The receptors recover their sensitivity. The metabolic machinery starts working the way it was designed to work. And when you eat again after a genuine fasting window, the meal is more satisfying, the insulin response is more appropriate, and the recovery before the next meal is easier. The whole system begins to regulate itself the way it was always supposed to. 2 to 3 real, nutrient-dense meals a day is where most people find the greatest metabolic benefit. Protein at every meal to preserve and rebuild lean tissue. Healthy fats to create satiety and slow digestion. Vegetables for fiber and micronutrients. And nothing in between except water, black coffee, or plain tea. No snacks, no top-ups, no constant grazing. Your hunter-gatherer ancestors did not eat 6 times a day. They did not set alarms. They did not carry protein bars. They ate when food was available, and they went without when it was not. And they were metabolically extraordinary by modern standards. No insulin resistance, no type 2 diabetes, no visceral obesity, the same DNA you carry, the same hormonal systems, the same metabolic architecture, and a pattern of eating that worked in complete harmony with all of it.
We decided we knew better.
We decided we knew better. We decided that feeding the system more frequently would make it run more efficiently, and in doing so, we broke one of the most powerful and elegantly designed systems in the human body. You do not need to eat every 2 hours. You were never designed to. Your body's most remarkable metabolic capability, its ability to burn its own stored fat for stable, long-lasting energy. That system cannot operate when you are eating constantly. It needs the space between meals to do its work. It needs the silence between the signals. It needs the time you have been told never to give it. The habit of constant eating was not healthy. It was never healthy. And now that you understand why, you can make a different choice. Not a choice based on willpower or restriction or fear of hunger. A choice based on understanding how your own biology actually works. At Wellness Daily, this is exactly what we are here for. Not the simplified version of nutrition that keeps you confused and dependent on the next diet trend. The real version, grounded in physiology, that gives you the understanding to actually change your health for good. If this video helped you see something you had never seen before, share it with someone who needs it. Subscribe and turn on the bell because the next video might be the one that changes everything for you.